Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. Today we've got an amazing mirror match between heavyweights Ondjage and TlaxtlanSoothsayer as they both take the Empire to the field. Ondjage's army is led by a general of the Empire in the air with Blood Roar, Foe Seeker, and a Potion of Toughness, while his light wizard has the Net of a Mintok and a Scroll of Power. 5 units of spearmen, a unit of flagellants, the Tattersouls, and the Greatswords form a very large infantry contingent that is capable of surrounding a smaller, more elite enemy army and also holding a line and fending off enemy cavalry without being directly in harm's way. 2 units of handgunners and the Silver Bullets provide armor-piercing range support, while the Demigryph Knights, without halberds this time, will look to target enemy infantry primarily. The Royal Altdorf Griffites will work against enemy cavalry instead, and the Hammer of the Witches will try to shut down enemy large units from the get-go. TlaxtlanSoothsayer's army is also led by a general of the Empire in the air with Blood Roar, Foe Seeker, and a Potion of Toughness. His light wizard, however, comes in with Fa's Protection, the Net of a Mintok, and Arcane Conduit. 5 units of spearmen and 2 units of flagellants offer the same flexibility to the army as Ondjage has, though it lacks the armor-piercing anti-infantry of the Greatswords. However, a much larger ranged contingent with 4 units of handgunners and the Silver Bullets will put a lot of pressure on the enemy in no man's land, while the Reichsguard will look to take quick care of what's left of enemy infantry, and the Demigryph Knights with halberds and Royal Altdorf Griffites will finish off enemy cavalry. Alright, I think for the first time in Total Breakdown history, we're actually not going to talk about initial deployments because they are completely moot. The only thing that's important to know is that these armies have deployed across from each other on a battlefield that is very difficult to traverse in the center. So they actually are forced to move right away. You'll see TlaxtlanSoothsayer here pushing to take charge of this side of the field, while Ondjage is pushing to take charge of this side of the field. Again, just trying to get into position because the battlefield here is very strange to engage up and down this center point over here. So that's why it's completely pointless to talk about deployments to begin with. Instead, it's just good to know that the Hammer of the Witches is able to open shots off right from the get-go as TlaxtlanSoothsayer is trying to get into position. And you'll see he actually moves his cavalry through these trees here so that they stay hidden, can't be targeted by the Hammer of the Witches. And apart from that, if they are targeted by any means, they're relatively safe because of all the trees around them. So just trying to use the trees as cover, and so the Hammer of the Witches instead targeting some of these infantry units. You'll see, I think, one lone handgunner there took the brunt of that one and died. But just trying to get some hits off into the infantry as it sort of pushes into formation. And it's also important to note that, oh, look at that. That was a good hit. Good set of hits there, just targeting that clump, getting a little bit of hurt into the spearmen and the handgunners. But important to note, between these two armies, one, that is to say, TlaxtlanSoothsayer's is a lot more dependent on range support, while the other, Ondjage's, is a lot heavier in the melee category. So despite being from the same faction, these guys are taking very different approaches to the battle. Again, another shot from the Hammer of the Witches, just trying to get some damage in nice and early, targeting whatever it can before lines do have to meet, because again, the range units aren't going to be difficult for the spearmen to take care of either, so just trying to shut down some of these flagellants and spearmen from the get-go. Let's kick it up a notch. Don't really have to watch the slow deployment here. Again, cavalry just sticking to the woods, not trying to make sure they can't get targeted, trying to make sure that they don't get hit and take any early damage. You'll see the handgunners here splitting up into 2 separate parts here. We've got one unit or one set heading up the hill over here, while another set is trying to hold this choke point and make sure that nothing's able to enter in through here as the rest of the army is forming up over here. So TlaxtlanSoothsayer just trying to hold Ondjage back from both angles of potential approach, and I think both armies are pretty confident that they've seen the entirety of the enemy on the field. Meanwhile, you'll see the Hammer of the Witches trying to get some hurt into these handgunners just because they're nice and nearby. They're an easy target, but very nicely deployed. They're long and thin, so they're not going to take a lot of hurt. Meanwhile, you'll see initial shots do begin. These spearmen getting some shots into their backs. Good targeting there by the handgunners, and meanwhile, these handgunners over here as well taking a lot of damage as the Silver Bullets open shots off. Meanwhile, you'll see the General of the Empire alongside these spearmen and the flagellants over here are pushing in to try and engage these guys and try and take care of them nice and early, while the Hammer of the Witches continues to cause a lot of damage among these handgunners alongside that range support as well. The spearmen over here pushing forward as well just to try and shut that range support down and shut down the hilltop over there. Meanwhile, over here, a big mistake by the General of the Empire as he flies in under a tremendous amount of ranged fire. His health drops immediately and significantly. He's at less than half health in one volley, I believe it was. His morale is completely dropping. He's already shaken. He's about to start wavering a little bit. So one volley, because the General of the Empire pushed into a very central location there, he was able to take, rather, he was unfortunate enough to take shots from all directions, and right away you'll see both armies trying to pull a fast one. the General of the Empire here using Foe Seeker to try and get out of this really ridiculous and tough situation that he finds himself in, or put himself in rather, while you'll see the net of a Mintok does go down from both Light Wizards. So on the one hand, these silver bullets and handgunners being held in place so they can't chase after the General of the Empire, but on the other hand, they're not going to have to chase because the General of the Empire and his flagellants and spearmen all shut down by the net of a Mintok. So the General made a crucial mistake there, actually pulling in this direction. If he'd opted to go in a different direction, these guys could have continued their chase and actually shut these guys down so no range support would arrive. But instead, because the General of the Empire took this left turn, all of these guys have been netted down, and these silver bullets and handgunners are all able to continue firing. And you'll see the General of the Empire is not having a good time there. So you'll see these Demigryph Knights are being forced to push in to try and provide some support and shut those guys down ASAP. Meanwhile, on this right flank here, you'll see the Spearmen creeping up the hill ever so slowly as the handgunners from TlaxtlanSoothsayer are opening shots off. The Flagellants coming in as well as these other units of Spearmen and Greatswords over here. So again, just trying to get some damage in and shut that down as the rest of the infantry contingent from TlaxtlanSoothsayer shows up on the hill as well. And meanwhile, already in just a moment's time, that General of the Empire is willing to give up. He's already routing now, very low on health, has basically like an eighth of his health left, I think, but you'll see there the Demigryph Knights do dive into the silver bullets. Just a little bit too late, though. A lot of damage already done. The General of the Empire from TlaxtlanSoothsayer dives in, though, to respond to the Demigryph Knights, however, putting him in range of these silver bullets as well as the handgunner. So opening shots off initially to these silver bullets from TlaxtlanSoothsayer's side, but they should have really been targeting the General of the Empire. You can see right there, they changed their target, trying to shut down the General of the Empire, while the Hammer of the Witches continues to open shots off, now able to fire into the cavalry finally, trying to get some damage done. Of course, cannonballs hit hard when they've got a large target, so just trying to shut these guys down as they're trying to push in towards these Demigryph Knights over here. And again, these Demigryph Knights do not have halberds, so they are not anti-large, but these Demigryph Knights do have halberds, and of course the Royal Altdorf Griffites are both anti-large units, so a very dangerous situation there. Meanwhile, you'll see the General of the Empire has actually shattered completely. He's going to live to die another day, I believe, but he's completely shattered. He is not coming back into the field. He's not coming back to fight. The Flagellants, meanwhile, here engaged by these Spearmen, so not able to shut down those handgunners completely, while the Demigryph Knights back here engaged by these Spearmen as well. So great use of those Spearmen just to make sure that nothing is able to shut down the handgunners while these handgunners are being pulled away to safety, though the silver bullets have taken some hurt, a decent amount of hurt, and they're largely shut down at this point. Meanwhile, you'll see these Spearmen continue to push up while these handgunners are trying to open some shots off, and again, TlaxtlanSoothsayer's infantry getting into line to intercept these guys. Let's kick it back to full speed here, and you'll see the Demigryph Knights here trying to pull away from the Spearmen as the very threatening Demigryph Knights and Royal Altdorf Griffites from TlaxtlanSoothsayer come in, but look at that handgunner fire, shutting these guys down right away. A lot of damage goes through, and meanwhile, over here on the right flank, you'll see we do have the infantry charges kicking in as well, trying to get these guys bogged down. You'll see pulling the Tattersouls back here just a little bit, trying to make sure they don't get shot up by the handgunners, and over here, the anti-large cavalry forced to pull back after all that range fire comes in. Meanwhile, these Spearmen here chasing after the handgunners, but the Demigryph Knights actually turn around, risk their lives, and the handgunners open up another volley and do a lot of damage, shattering these guys right away. They're wavering right now. They're about to shatter, but there you have it. There's the rout with the charge and that handgunner fire. Those guys are taken care of. Meanwhile, on the right flank here, take a look at this beautiful maneuver. These Reichsguard here are able to push through this little gap, and they do a wonderful job here, getting a nice rear charge, pulling around, and getting right into the backs of these Spearmen. So wonderful, wonderful work there, just making sure those guys get taken care of right away. And that right flank of the right flank taken care of and going to TlaxtlanSoothsayer. Meanwhile, this left flank, though, going the way of Ondjage as these Spearmen fall apart. These Spearmen, as well, as we saw, routing under that tremendous amount of range fire. And now it's all about shutting down that range support. But over here, these handgunners, again, continuing to pummel shots into the Tattersouls while they are up against the Spearmen. And TlaxtlanSoothsayer's general is there as well to provide some support. And this line does break from Ondjage. These guys are not willing to stay and fight. They're all pulling back as the Spearmen from TlaxtlanSoothsayer push through and frighten these guys away. The Hammer, though, which is continuing to open shots off, trying to get some damage into these Demigryph Knights with halberds. Look at the Royal Altdorf Griffites, though. They have been completely taken care of. And meanwhile, the Reichsguard there, after having done a wonderful job shutting down a unit of Spearmen with that rear charge, just pulling away and looking for the next potential target. These Royal Altdorf Griffites, though, eating some shots, pinned by the Flagellants, while the handgunners there opening some shots off and getting some damage. And meanwhile, the Tattersouls here completely surrounded as well. Again, we don't see this enough. Just want to make a point of it when we do see it. That full surround causing a lot more damage per second. Tattersouls do not get scared away, so they're not going to get frightened off the field, but this is going to help take care of them a lot quicker. So always do this when you can. Full envelopment, the enemy was retreating, so these Spearmen just came around the back and poked away at these Tattersouls. Now, back to full speed, you'll see these Greatswords having a bit of a field day against the Spearmen here with some of that range support as well, though they are low on morale. They're in a bit of a tight spot, while over here you'll see these Spearmen and the Flagellants from Ondjage pushing in and trying to scare off these handgunners. Unfortunately, the Flagellants from TlaxtlanSoothsayer, doing a lot of work there. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see the Royal Ultra of Griffites trying to get a rear charge in there, ping-ponging between the spearmen over here just to shut them all down and actually scare them off, and doing a great job frightening them. The Royal Ultra of Griffites alongside the Demigryph Knights, they're scaring these guys off, shattering them completely, and now the hill, all of a sudden, within moments, belongs to Ondjage as the spearmen are all on their way out. The Flagellants back here as well, forced to retreat as the Hammer of the Witches as well continues to open shots off, trying to get some damage and finish off these Royal Ultra of Griffites, doing a great job there. These handgunners, though, holding their ground, opening shots at the greatswords as they pull back, and again, reforming a little bit. We don't see this enough either. Ondjage pulling back what he can and reforming to make sure he's able to, again, push forward again after his army has consolidated. Unfortunately, the Tattersouls up here getting a lot of damage from these Flagellants, and the General of the Empire as well coming in from TlaxtlanSoothsayer and causing a decent amount of hurt. Unfortunately, over here as well, these Flagellants have been completely taken care of. They're not even worth trying to rescue, unfortunately. Meanwhile, the Royal Ultra of Griffites here just pulling away, trying to get out of range from those handgunners, but unfortunately they do get hit by the Net of Mintok and they can get shot at. So nice try rescuing them, but great job by TlaxtlanSoothsayer holding these guys in place and making sure they eat a lot of damage. Unfortunately, though, this volley from the handgunners down there takes care of those handgunners, and again, we have the Silver Bullets opening shots, trading shots with the Silver Bullets alongside these handgunners, trying to scare them and doing so quite well, forcing them to pull back. These handgunners, though, able to open shots off, so the Demigryph Knights, again, without their halberds, trying to push in to shut these guys down, having to avoid the Flagellants, so a little bit of micromanagement there, trying to avoid engaging these Flagellants and pushing right through to shut these guys down, scare them off once and for all. Need to be very careful, though, of course. The Reiksguard are right there, and they can cause a decent amount of damage in this situation, but you'll see Net of a Mintok, wonderfully played, holding them in place, not able to charge the Greatswords, not able to charge into the Demigryph Knights, and the Greatswords just pulling off to the side and looking for something to engage. Meanwhile, you see the General of the Empire from TlaxtlanSoothsayer needing to be very careful. Can't pull in here because 3 units of handgunners will do a lot of work very quickly, as we saw earlier as well. But meanwhile, the Demigryph Knights back here having an absolute field day, scaring these guys off. Again, ping-ponging between these handgunners, but TlaxtlanSoothsayer's Demigryph Knights as well come in to respond, and they, again, have halberds, so they will make very quick work. Not that they need to, because they have given up, but they would have made very quick work of Ondjage's Demigryph Knights. Meanwhile, over here we have a cavalry-on-cavalry charge as the Royal Ultra of Griffites dive into TlaxtlanSoothsayer's Reiksguard, and of course, they are anti-large, so the Reiksguard are going to take a lot of damage. That range support, though, is going to do a lot of work for TlaxtlanSoothsayer, and you can see the Royal Ultra of Griffites are taking a lot of hurt. They are beginning to fall apart ever so slowly. The Light Wizard as well now pulling away, trying to stay safe from any range fire, while the Demigryph Knights with halberds trying to pull back here and take care of the range support that TlaxtlanSoothsayer has. And over here you'll see the General of the Empire again pushing in, but gets netted down, so can't actually come down, and now that infinite focus fire, it feels like, doing a lot of work. And over here as well, you'll see the Demigryph Knights quickly pushing in to try and shut down all that range support, so great work there, pulling those guys in to shut down that support. Unfortunately, it's far too little, far too late, as these handgunners are able to continue opening fire, and you'll see the General there routing as the unhurt Hammer of the Witches there continues to open shots off, I think trying to get damage into the General of the Empire. The handgunners continue to do the same as well. Meanwhile, we do have a Net of a Mintok going down here. Great play there, just to make sure that these handgunners aren't able to chase after the General. If anything's going to keep this General alive and morale even slightly up, it's the fact that he's staying alive, because these guys are being netted down. Unfortunately, though, at this point, it's just mop up, and it has been for a little while. That was the crucial engagement that, unfortunately, TlaxtlanSoothsayer lost, and as a result of that, a Pyrrhic victory to Ondjage's empire. This battle shows how the smallest of differences in composition and the slightest of missteps can completely change a battle that is otherwise on an even field. Ondjage's general nearly fell within a few volleys from TlaxtlanSoothsayer's superior rifle line, and some beautiful networking, pun not intended, shut crucial parts of both armies down right from the start, and it was extremely essential right at the end there as well. Both armies were spread wide from the beginning, and the amount of management required was insanely high. At the end of the day, ranged fire made a huge difference. I guess it's not about the size of your ranged contingent, but about how you use it. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content, and keep sending in those battle replays. I think it's one of the best ways to learn, and seeing such intense battles from the community is always a good time. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.